Hello and welcome to a new video. Today we're gonna take a look at the top 10 Shadow Pokemon for the Open Great League, as you're going to have a Shadow event coming up as well in January, where you're going to be able to remove frustration. Today we're going to take a look at Pokemon that you definitely want to have. Yeah, not with frustration anymore, because they're very strong for the Open Great League. Most of them are going to be, haven't been strong basically the entire time through, so they're very likely even going to be good in future seasons, so definitely stay tuned for those. And also, yeah, feel free to subscribe, and if you want to see the same for the Open Ultra League as well, feel free to leave a like on the video. We'll really appreciate it as well, and shows me if you're interested in more content like this. Else we can start off with the first Pokemon that you maybe want to build as a Shadow, which is Steelix. By the way, this list is going to be based on my own opinion, which means that the ranking on the site here for Poke, for example here, for Steelix 45, is not going to be always in the same order, because I feel like, yeah, what you actually play with and how it's ranked is a lot of times a little bit different, especially also for prioritizing certain Shadow Pokemon. There are some that are going to be a bit more important be as a Shadow compared to their normal form. Steelix is both good in both forms. I like the Shadow version quite a bit more though for it, for the main reason that you have access to the move Psychic Fangs here, as well as Thunder Fang together, which means you have two very powerful moves here that you can run both together very well, especially when you are Shadow. So basically, what you're going to have here is you're going to have Steelix with a fast move that does a lot of damage against a lot of the Pokemon that you usually wouldn't be able to hit as a Steel and Ground type Pokemon, especially of course those are Water types that you're going to be able to hit, as well as Flying type Pokemon, which especially as a Ground type is kind of nice to be able to do super effective damage against. But then Psychic Fangs is a move that guarantees drops the opponent's defense stat, which means that you do a lot of more damage with your fast move as well, which already does a lot of fast move damage, even though it's not stab. And now with the Shadow bonus on top, it just kind of amplifies everything. So basically what this allows Steelix to be is an amazing Pokemon, even though it's very bulky, to sweep and two shield scenarios. Flip switch advantages there as well then with that in two shields, just because a lot of Pokemon, if they're not ground type, they can't really deal with the insane amount of, yeah, electric type damage by Thunder Fang, and this is also something that we can see here real quick as well. It has in the one shield scenario 32 wins and 19 losses in the current meta, and as you can see on the right side, this Pokemon is very strong and maybe even one of the most underrated Shadow Pokemon currently, because I don't really see it that often, but honestly it looks absolutely fantastic. Maybe I actually kind of want to try it out now. Like, again, I didn't really think too much about trying this Pokemon out recently as well, but now looking at it, it should definitely get a showcase on this channel. So, next up, we're going to have Malamar. This is a Pokemon that is, for example, ranked 60, but I think it's actually quite more important than the Steelix. I think they are both very good though. Malamar itself has the big benefit that the Shadow bonus really changes the way this Pokemon performs. The thing is, here, basically, you had before, if you don't have the non-Shadow, like if you have the non-Shadow version, it's still a very strong Pokemon, but it's really strong because you have the coverage of Foul Play and Superpower, which is great generally speaking, because if you think about it, what can the Dark type not really hit? It's going to be other Dark type, for example, which you're going to be able to hit for Superpower as well, and that is going to be cool. And for the Psychic type damage that you have with Psywave, what can you hit not there? It's going to be also Dark types, again, for that reason there's Superpower on this Pokemon, but also Steel type Pokemon going to be now at least, yeah, able to deal with this moveset. But basically, where the Shadow bonus benefits you is that all of a sudden now as well, you don't only have damage in Dark and Flying type damage here with the Charge moves they have, but also Psywave is doing a lot of damage, especially up in the two-shield scenario, which is going to help you out in matchups, for example, against the Azumarill, where the fast move damage really helps you out. And so, yeah, this Pokemon itself, I think especially, again, it's a Pokemon that really benefits from the two-shield scenario. It's going to be a Pokemon that you would love to have as a Shadow, and as we see already, this thing looks really strong, and it's a very good tool to have as well for team building. I think it's the best as a closer, but I also only recently made a video, well, I'm recording this at least, about if the Shadow or the non-Shadow is better, so definitely check that one out as well. It's on the channel, went up one day before Christmas, that's why it maybe didn't get as much traction, but let's take a look here at the next Pokemon, where we're going to have Talonflame. And Talonflame is a Pokemon that is a bit underrated, because look at the ranking, it's only ranked at 99. This Pokemon deserves a little bit higher in my opinion. It has a way more usage in the current meta, like honestly, it has a way more usage in the current meta. So this is going to be quite interesting, because as we will see here, Talonflame is going to be a very strong Pokemon in the meta. Like, you have a lot of pressure basically with this thing. With the Shadow Talonflame, a lot of times is actually, if you have it as a closer or as a lead, you're going to be able to sweep through sometimes even full teams. Like we had actually multiple regional winners already with Shadow Talonflame for like the Play Pokemon tournaments, but also here just having the option to do fast move damage that kind of hits as much as certain Pokemon short move damage is kind of wild. Like you have a lot of good matchups as well in the meta. I think fire-type Pokemon generally are very strong in the current meta, and Talonflame is like no exception for this. Of course, you have to be a bit mindful on how you play it. It's best to play either in the two-shot scenario, or if you have a bit of an energy advantage, if you can farm down a Pokemon, it's kind of more ideal for those scenarios. But with Flame Charge and Fly, you do a lot of damage and you can boost your own attack up even further. So this Pokemon is absolutely worth it to get as a Shadow. Sableye is going to be next. This Pokemon is ranked 15, so quite a bit higher than the rest, and deserves also be a bit higher on the list here, of course. Sableye is a Pokemon that's absolutely amazing now as, yeah, kind of a Saisop, kind of even as lead or as a closer. You can run it actually in every single position. It's very versatile because you have access to Power Gem or Dazzling Gleam, depending on what kind of coverage you want. In the meta where Dark-type Pokemon are a little bit more common, you can go for Dazzling Gleam. In the meta that's generally around, usually you have a Power Gem because it gives you better coverage against Pokemon that like part flying. And a lot of the targets that you would have for Dazzling Gleam are also weak to Power Gem. One big example for that is, for example, Altaria, which is going to have the part flying typing, which is also then going to be weak against Power Gem. And Power Gem generally is just the better move to go for by damage per energy. But as you can see here, this Pokemon is quite neutral. This is a Pokemon that absolutely hates Wigglytuff though. This is the kind of funny thing as well. Every single time like the Sableye gets back into the meta and becomes more popular, Wigglytuff gets back into the meta as well at the same time, because it is the easiest and the best answer to this Pokemon here. But generally speaking, Sableye again is going to benefit majorly from being Shadow compared to the non-Shadow. The non-Shadow still works out, by the way, but the Shadow is, in my opinion, quite a bit better. Because what you're going to have here is you're going to have then, again, kind of similar to what we have with the Meloma, that we now have 3 types of damage instead of 2 types of damage. Like Foul Play and the Power Gem together, of course, have great coverage damage here in Rock and Dark. But with the Shadow bonus on top, you're also going to be able to get some more Ghost type damage in, which is going to be amazing in Pokemon like the Azumarill, where your Foul Play is going to be resisted. And this can completely change matchups, and this is why I like the Sableye so much as a Shadow. And then again, you have more farm down potential as well with the Shadow Sableye compared to the normal one, as you have a lot of Ghost type Pokemon, where you're going to be able to not only take neutral damage from Ghost types, you're going to be able to dish back super effective damage, which is going to be amazing. And so, yeah, especially with the Foul Play boost this season, Sableye really benefited from the Shadow bonus here. Steelix is going to be next. This is going to be an interesting Pokemon, could have been even higher up on the list. I think it's the highest ranked Shadow Pokemon. I think it's actually the second highest ranked Shadow Pokemon, sorry. And this Pokemon is very cool, but I feel like it's a bit of a Pokemon that you don't need to have the Shadow bonus directly on it. I think the normal one works just as well. Both of them are fine though. Of course, this one has more fast move pressure, has more immediate pressure with body slam spam, while the normal one just has a bit more bulk. Both of them are totally fine, but I feel like here they're both equally strong, and that is not something I feel with the Sableye, or with the Meloma, or with the Talonflame. So, while yes, this is a good Shadow Pokemon to build, like no question about it, I feel like if you have already a non-Shadow one build, then there is some reason still, of course, to build this one, but I feel like it is not as severe of a reason compared to the other ones. I think the difference between Shadow and non-Shadow Steelix is quite smaller than, basically, for example, for Shadow and non-Shadow Meloma. And so we can move on to Annihilate. This Pokemon also definitely functions as a non-Shadow Pokemon, but as a Pokemon that uses Rage Fist in order to boost its own attack up. Having a bonus basically on top of the attack damage there is, I think, kind of valuable for sure. And this is where Annihilate really kind of, comes in clutch. I think this Pokemon is absolutely fantastic with a Shadow bonus on top of it. As you see as well, this is going to be a Pokemon that can break through the meta. Being able to beat something like a Bastion so easily is going to be amazing. But I think the Shadow bonus really helps us. When I use Annihilate, 99% of the times I use the Shadow version of it. The non-Shadow version still, again, if you don't have a Shadow Annihilate, non-Shadow version is still very nice and usable. But it's just not as good as this one, in my opinion. So I would really recommend you to build the Annihilate. Next up, bit more surprising maybe on the list, but this is currently one of my favorite Pokemon in the GO Battle League. It's Toucannon. After the community day, this Pokemon is super underrated still. I barely see it against me, but every single time I play it, it is absolutely amazing. It's a Pokemon that's easy to team build around. It's a Pokemon that has so much potential to sweep endgame. It's a very squishy Pokemon, which you see in the overall stats here as well, of only 1600. It is very, very squishy, but it's so worth it. Like, look at what it can do in the meta. It basically beats nearly everything here. Unless you go up against an Ice or Bastion, like, you're going to be absolutely fine. And yeah, Toucannon, one of my favorite Pokemon to play currently. Honestly, it's so strong. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Toucannon win a major tournament very soon after now we basically got the buff on it. I think it's going to be such a cool Pokemon to see. It's a very strong Pokemon, absolutely, and I could see definitely it going all the way in like major tournaments for the Play Pokemon tournaments as well, but also for the GO Battle League. I've had so many reviews already for this one because I love this Pokemon so much right now. It's one of my favorite Pokemon to run currently. But more realistically, we have to kind of talk about Dusknoir. This Pokemon is ranked 13, and I think here the Shadow bonus really helps this Pokemon out. I would not really want to recommend you to run this Pokemon without the Shadow bonus. It's still playable, don't get me wrong, like every kind of Pokemon is still playable as non-Shadow as well, but this one specifically, I feel like it is kind of someone who really likes to have the bonus on it. Why? Because of the Astonish damage. Astonish damage is kind of the main reason why you would want to run this Pokemon, because it can basically shield through opponents if they don't resist the fast move. That's how strong Astonish is. That's why I also feel like Astonish could deserve a little bit of a nerf in my opinion, because it is, for Pokemon like these here basically, they can just farm through opponents in 2 shields. It's kind of like the modern Razor Leaf if you played GO Battle League for quite long. It's very similar to this, but compared to Razor Leaf doesn't really generate energy at all. Astonish still generates energy quite fast, allowing you to go for the Shadow Punch after first 12 and then 9 turns, which is really fast. And basically what you have here is a Pokemon that really wants to have a lot of fast move damage, but also gets the charge moves quite fast as well to pressure opponents early, and it just kind of destroys shields from the opponent. And so, yeah, Dusknoir absolutely worth it to be a Shadow. I would not recommend you Dusclops. Dusclops, the pre-evolution, is better as a non-Shadow in my opinion, but Dusknoir is absolutely the better Shadow, so if you have a good Shadow Duskull, better go for that one. And now we go for a Pokemon that's ranked way lower, but has such a big impact as a Shadow, which is the Scizor. Scizor is going to be an amazing Pokemon to run as a Shadow, because as we will see here as well, this thing is going to be amazing against the current meta. And the thing is, with Bullet Punch being so strong, in the 2-shit scenario, you can farm through so many Pokemon. To be fair, the meta can shift to a point where it is a bit worse, which doesn't mean that it's bad at all. Like, it's still very strong, but it was dominating the last season completely as one of the, if not the strongest Pokemon in the Open Great League. And now it's still there, it still works out really well. There are just quite a lot of Steel-type Pokemon currently in the meta, which you are not able to hit as much, as well as Water-type Pokemon, which you can only hit if you have a bit of an energy advantage. But generally speaking, look at this is a 2-shit scenario, and it basically destroys nearly everything that you see on the right side as well. It is so strong with the fast move damage that you have on this thing. Like, Bullet Punch on it, in my opinion, could even receive a nerf in the future, just because of how overpowered it is on Shadow Scizor. And now we can take a look at Marowak. This is the #1 Pokemon to build. It's the number 1 Pokemon on PvPoke as well. I don't really want to go over PvPoke here as well, because I feel like, yeah, it kind of deserves the spot here. It has been, since the Mudslap buff, basically one of the strongest Pokemon in the Great League of all time there. Like, this Pokemon is has such a legacy basically at this point already, that it is one of the GOATs of the Great League, because it's so difficult to deal with it. This Pokemon, if you have energy advantage, what does really want to swap into it? This is the reason why it's so crazy. It's like the moveset that you have. You have Bone Club, which is great against Pokemon that's like Steel type, and you have Mudslap, especially, like Mudslap is the main one. But it's going to be weak, for example, against Ice type Pokemon, against Flying type Pokemon, where like you can take it defensively. But against Flying type and Ice type Pokemon, you have Rock Slide as a coverage move, which is super effective. So basically, as soon as you're going to have a bit of an energy advantage, if you can farm on something with a Marowak, this thing can go through every single team. Like, basically, it's going to be able to go through nearly every single team. There's not really a Pokemon currently in the meta that resists both the rock and the ground type damage, other than like Torterra, which is already squishy, which actually, if it's Shadow Torterra, takes still a lot of damage. And then the next one is Toadscruel, which actually is the best answer to this Pokemon here, and basically nobody's running it currently. So, yeah, Marowak is basically a Pokemon that doesn't have answers. It's very, very good as a Shadow especially, and definitely the strongest Shadow Pokemon currently in the Great League in my opinion. I feel like there is no doubt about that. And so yeah, this is going to be it for my tier list here. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to leave a like. If you want to see it for the Ultra League, let me know down below, and I will see you then.